Yes. Okay. Warm greetings, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for bearing with us. We praise the Lord for enabling us to go online today. Thank you for joining us live. We appreciate your presence. Today's webinar is the 12 top tips on writing for young readers with Lawrence Darmani. This is Ramon Rocha hosting this webinar. We are happy to see 49 from around the world sign up
Oh,
for
great.
this webinar. If this is your first time to attend live, if this is your first time, type in the chat window first time. Just type first time. We would like to welcome you to the MAI family if this is your first time to join live. So we have varied participants from around the world, from the Philippines, from the US, from Kenya, Republic of Congo, Singapore, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Cameroon, Egypt, Australia, Sierra Leone, Cambodia, Indonesia, South Africa, the UK, Mexico, Juan Carlos, Viva Mexico, Canada. First time, Jenny, thank you for joining us for the first time. So let's get on with our topic. The youth, they are our future leaders. God also uses the written word to transform young people's lives. Writing for young readers is such a crucial, important topic. We are blessed to have award-winning author Lawrence Darmani to be our speaker today. Lawrence is the publisher at Step Publishers based in Accra, Ghana. His book, Grief Child, won the Commonwealth Writers' Prize as Best First Book from Africa in 1992. Lawrence wrote several other books, fiction and nonfiction, and he continues to write excellent books for young readers in Ghana and in Africa and for the world. Lawrence is a distinguished MAI trainer and a member of MAI Africa Board of Trustees. Let's welcome Lawrence Darmani.
Thank you very much, Ramon. That was a long introduction. Thank you very much. I give the glory to the Lord. I welcome every one of you to our session. In the past, I have traveled to other parts of Africa, and right now I'm sitting right in my study in Accra here, and when I learned the list of participants from around the world, that is surely the glory of the Lord. Now, we want to start off by the introduction, the recognizing the importance of writing for young readers. It is rewarding, it is exciting. We want to catch them young, and we want to also acknowledge the fact that the young people's groupings are quite wide. We have people writing for children, we have others writing for junior youth, and then we have teenagers, and then young adults, and so on. But for our session today, I would like us to concentrate on around between age 13 and age 19. These are the teenagers. So that is how our discussion is going to be like, and I do hope that all of us who have joined in this session really love young people. Now let's look at a couple of tips. I call them 12 tips. They are top tips for writing for young readers, and I specifically thought we should include the word readers in this, our title, so that we know that we write for people who would eventually be reading what we have written. And I would like to start off with point number one, that those of us who feel called to write for this group of young people should consider ourselves as missionaries and also as ambassadors to write for young people. It is important to do so because the idea of writing for young readers means an outreach to them with the gospel of Christ. So we make this writing a mission, God sent, and therefore it will demand some form of commitment. And I always remember missionaries who have come to Africa or now have gone from Africa to other parts of the world. If you're a missionary, then you know you have a mission. And the mission for us is to write for young people that we love. Now remember how the Lord himself loved young people. David was only 17 years old when he faced Goliath, you know that, and defeated him. In fact, David and Goliath is a young reader's story. And the Lord Jesus, you remember, took a young boy's meal and fed 5,000 of people. And he said, we shall allow these young people to come to him. So it's a mission. And every time we have a mission, then we know we have a commitment. Do not think we're just writing for, because it is our hobby. Writing for young people goes beyond doing it as a hobby. Now, so because of that, and having mentioned that, therefore, I think it is not too much to remind us who write for young people that we should avoid using preaching, always looking for preaching. One of the cardinal sins of Christian writers is that somehow, at the end of the day, if we think we are not preaching, then we haven't yet communicated the word of God. But that is really not the case. So we should make time. That's point number two. We should make time to write for young people. Now, I mentioned this deliberately because writing is time consuming and time is of a critical essence. What you should not say is that writing for young people is easy. Do not presume that because readers are younger, writing for them is also easy and cheap. No, it isn't. It requires a lot of time and energy. So I would like to ask you, all 47 of us who are in this session, are we really called? Do we really feel called to write for young people? Are we ready for that? I want to believe that at the end of this session, we should be reaching out for our pens, and if we haven't been writing for young people, maybe we should be directed by the Lord to be writing for young people. Now, time is an all-time strategy for everybody who wants to write. If you don't make time one of your most important ingredients, you realize that the desire will be there, but you may not have found the time to write. Let's go to point number 3. And there I am asking us to recall our youthful days. Now we are looking for a resources for writing for young people. And I say experience is a vast storehouse. Writing from a personal experience ensures that you have a vast storehouse of information to draw from. Every one of us who are older than young people have been young people before. Now, many of you may have read the story of Anne Frank, the diary of Anne Frank. She was only 13 years old when she began to write for the experiences that she went through in the land during the war. And it's a beloved book, but she wrote from her own experiences. And so when you write from your own experiences, be thinking about specific areas, because it is not everything that you can bring to bear on what you are writing. But what experiences do we have? Now, in Africa, we have young people who have gone through all kinds of problems in their families, divorce situations, war, as well as diseases and things like that. Now, young people would like to read some of these experiences. And so it is important that we draw in to look for experiences that we have gone through. Now, when I wrote the book that Ramon just mentioned, even though I knew I was writing for younger readers, a lot of the stories that are in that book actually are stories that I have personally experienced. And not too long ago, I did a series of novels for young readers, a series of 5 books, and I realized that every single book was coming from experiences that I had myself gone through. But then I also recognized that there were others that experiences that other people had also gone through, and that's where your research comes in. Now, when you hear that fiction versus true story, and that fiction is more interesting than true life story, it is because you can vary or add or subtract or modify, rearrange your true experiences if you are doing fiction in order to enhance the lessons that can come from there. So your personal experience, your archives. Let's go to point number 4. Now, having said that there is a need to use our own personal experiences, we should also remember that we need to get to know the experiences of contemporary young people. What are the young people of today going through? Now, we need to add to our personal experience and the experiences of young people today. Now, you know that when you are writing for any group of people, and particularly for that age, that young age, the more you know them, the better it is that you are able to provide the kind of practical examples that can help them. So yes, get to know the contemporary young reader. What are they involved in that you can also be involved in yourself? I've had the opportunity to interact with young people at camp, junior young people's camps, and then also young people in our church. And it is very interesting how they are today, what they think, the way they go about their lives. So you need to know their demographic information, where are they living, the language they speak, the terminologies they use, and things like that. But one thing these young people don't want to do is that do not presume them to be children. They are not children. In fact, they don't want to be associated with children. They believe they are grown, they are growing. Of course, they are also not adults, so they are sitting there in the middle, feeling dignified in themselves. And you want to maintain that kind of dignity also, so that you don't run into a situation where you write way above their heads and far below them, and that is why you need to know what they are doing now. Their religious background and so on. We had an American young man who lived here in Accra at the beach. He lived here for many years. And when he submitted a novel for us, for young people around that age, my first impression was, can we have somebody who is a foreigner come and write about, experiences that we are going through? But lo and behold, believe me, when we went through the manuscript, we found out that the guy had really interacted with young people, got to know the contemporary young people living by the coast. So when the Fisher Boy was published, we realized it's doing well in the schools and among young people. So it doesn't matter really where your background is. All you need to know is the culture of the people you are writing for and how you can incorporate their cultural experiences also in your writing. Right, so get to know the contemporary young people, be involved with them, take interest in them. You might be having on your screen a photograph of 3 young people. You see the way they're looking at us? They have various things in their minds there. You need to know about them. Find out what they are reading, what are they watching, social media, what is trending with them. So, now point number 5, now Point number 5 takes us to the need to use the appropriate language. Now, always let's remember that because language is the vehicle for communication, we want to mention it as a separate strategy or technique. So we choose our language carefully. We are older people writing for younger people. Our way of thinking, the language we use when we are, addressing older people tends to change when we sit down and we picture the young person in our minds and then we are writing for them. So always we write to communicate. I have somebody I've mentored over the years, and I realized that every time he writes something for children, I have to sit him down again and go over and then point out to him that he writes very well for adults, but now when he steps down to write for young people, he's using language that is way above. Sometimes he forgets himself, and in his desire to communicate, he'll be using statements, sentences that are not really appropriate for them, and of course, very teachable. He has to go back. Now, recently, our Minister of Education in this country held a meeting for about 75 publishers in this country, and the main agenda was to help publishers to think about writing for readers in a very young age. And the questions that came and the responses showed that they have discovered that people desire to write for young people within that categories of age group, but then in the end they really don't communicate because of not using the appropriate language. For instance, they were saying something like, be mindful of how many words you have in a sentence, use conjunctions very carefully, and so on. So it just tells you, the fact that that conference came from that high level shows that our educational setters are interested in writers writing the kind of books that their young people will be very interested in knowing. So we need to note that and not disregard that. Now, simple is still best. That's an all-time technique or advice. Let's be simple in our communication with them. Humor is one of the ways by which young readers are often captured in books. Humor, those who are able to use humor properly, are able to bring the young people along, and so on. So let's look at that. I'm also very careful because I know there are certain jurisdictions where the educational level is a little bit low. The literacy level in wherever you are writing from, you need to pay particular attention to it. And that means your use of vocabulary. Don't forget that these young people's, the amount of vocabulary they have is still limited. And so there is a need for us to be aware of the literacy level in your country and write to meet the people. Don't forget that we are writing to communicate. Now, point number 6. Always, when you have a passion for something, you go for it. Anything that you have a passion for, you go for it. And somebody can have a passion to write about a theme or a topic or an issue because it is such a passion. Then they will make time for it. They will spend sleepless nights analyzing it and so on. So I am considering this as an important aspect of writing for young people. What's your passion? What do you really want to write for young people? What's the passion? So let's develop a passion. And when you are passionate about anything, you commit yourself, your energy, your resources into doing it. Of course, in so doing, let's don't forget that these young readers also have their passion, their interest. So your and our challenge is being able to merge what really interests us with what interests them. and that's the way that we juggle. And so knowing them also helps. For young people, I don't know in your home country what are the real issues, but we write for them fiction, non-fiction, poetry. I mean, if we're going to write poems for that age, you know how to use your language properly and the topic to write about. Um, so you want to really be abreast with time as to what they want to do now. So write about biblical, a teenager, uh, boys or girls, and so on. Sometimes creativity helps us to go into scripture and then try to get our themes from there. Now, think about the Noah's Ark. Were there teenagers in Noah's Ark? Your answer is no. Well, but you want to do some more research. Now, can you recreate Noah's Ark in which there were those young readers among them? Okay, now that is something you want to think about. These are just examples. But whatever the case may be, let's remember that they are also going through all kinds of issues: peer pressure, relationships, they love adventure, personal experiences, education, learning, examinations, and so on. So let us write on themes and issues that we are passionate about. Do not say, I don't know what to write about. If you want to write for children, you know, if you want to write for that young age, you know what to write about. What are the issues around your jurisdiction, your country, and your own experiences. Now, point number 7. Every time we used to publish, we publish for young people. We have a magazine called Step, and the one that we used to publish called Surprise for that age group, particularly Surprise. And we realized we developed 4 evaluating tools to know whether these stories that people submit to us actually will meet the desire for young people. How important is the manuscript or the subject? How relevant, how interesting, and how timely? Some interesting issues might not be as timely as others. And so that means that when you are going to write, you want to know what's more timely, what's interesting, and merging all of this will help you to know whether you are coming up with a manuscript that really would interest young people. Now, any subject is relevant if the angle is chosen for a particular age group. So always look for that angle, that specific area that would interest your young readers. Again, that goes back to the whole idea of knowing who they are. Now, let me go to point number 8 quickly. There is something you know about called pacing. Pacing is simply the speed at which you do things, the rate, your swiftness, the momentum of developing or providing information for readers. And believe me, because of who we are as human beings, we often interject how we are into what we are writing. That's how it turns out that when people read us, then they get to know us. Young people like fast-paced materials given to them, right? But you may be a very slow-paced person. Well, the young person you're writing for today really want it fast. Have you heard how they talk? They talk very fast. Okay, so what is your pacing style? Any slow start or development can bore a young reader. So even if you are writing nonfiction, the rate at which you drop the examples or the anecdotes for them is very important. They want it very fast, and so on. So because of that, even if it is nonfiction, your examples should be really concrete, not so abstract, because of the way they conceptualize things. Young people are very interesting people, and we love them. Brevity is helpful. It's a helpful strategy. So now brevity, the length of our sentences, the chapters, even whole articles, is a golden rule to be brief. Now that is why novels that are short and specific stories are more preferable to these long and winding ones. Young readers, they will prefer anthologies of short stories. We found out that they love anthologies of short stories because they want it fast. They want a story fast. They want to finish with it and go to something else. All right, let's go to point number 9. And point number 9 is a strategy that we all must have if we want to write for young people. And we are talking about the power of imagination. Imagination is every writer's critical tool. If you develop your power of imagination to a level, there is no subject that you cannot write about. And every time you will have something to say. The world is running the way it is, full of the imagination of our leaders and some other people. So, young people, remember, are prone to boredom. They get bored easily. That's why they go for the adventure things. They are adventurous. So the writer needs to explore for something unusual, something new, something challenging. Always look for something new and challenging, and capture also the ideas that come. Your ability to capture the ideas that come to you as you imagine is very critical. A lot of people come up with ideas, but somehow they lose it because somehow they don't write them down, they don't develop them, and some great ideas have been found to be lost on authors. Whereas those who took time to develop their ideas, now that's how we have great books that have been written for young people. Now we all say what if, the what if technique. For example, what if only teenagers were left on planet Earth? What if teenagers became parents? And that's not a hypothetical situation. We have teenagers who have become parents. Okay? What if a teenager was the pastor of a church? I've always wondered, supposing the firstborn, a teenage boy, on the day that the Israelites were to leave Egypt, and a boy found himself, a firstborn of an Egyptian, found himself in the house of Goshen because he roamed there and visited, and on the night of the Passover, he would be covered, wouldn't he, by the blood that was put on the doorposts of the Israelites. So that boy, even though he was a firstborn, the blood would have covered him. Now, I just imagined how that might be. So, regular brainstorming is key in our imaginative writing. Always brainstorm. And I think it's almost unnecessary to mention the need for writers to always keep a notebook in hand. And then during the time we are having our devotions or we are having a meeting somewhere in church, everywhere, you can write down ideas that come to us. All right, point number 10. Learn from the pros, the experts. Now, we say don't reinvent the wheel, but in writing I say reinvent the wheel. By learning from experts in the field, that is experienced writers of young readers' literature, we can reinvent the wheel in our writing. However, it is important that while you are reinventing that wheel, you maintain your own style and so on. There's one writing tutor who has even recommended that an author can break a book apart, chapter by chapter, scene by scene, in order to learn what went into producing that particular piece of literature. And I think that is a great way to learn. Just keep your uniqueness and maintain your originality. And there is nothing wrong with modeling your work based on what has been done successfully elsewhere. And this is not plagiarism. It has nothing to do with plagiarism, but it has everything to do with learning. And we can always learn from those who have done it in the past for us. Now, point number 11. After we have written a work, I remember once when Africa Christian Press asked me to write stories from Africa, folk tales for young readers in this particular category, I think from 13 to 19-year-olds. There were 6 books in the series. And what Africa Christian Press did then in those days was that after my manuscript was received, they actually went to the age groups. Some of them they found in the church, others in school, others in their neighborhood, and they printed copies and asked them to read. And that's what I call the test reading. Now, they came back with amazing suggestions as to the improvement of how the work will be done. For example, they asked for more examples. They asked for contextualizing the ideas. If you think animals can talk, that's okay, except that don't make it so obvious, because we've been unable to develop an animal character to make the character speak and act like a human being so much that the reader will forget that that is an animal talking. Maybe C.S. Lewis will do that in his Narnia Chronicles. Now, the rest of us can learn, but it helps to test read them. We can give it to them for reading. And it came back. And another point I'm making under this particular point is that when their suggestions come back to us, we need the spirit of humility to be able to accept that that's the child's suggestion. And it doesn't take anything from us as writers to listen to what a child is saying, and then for us to also work alongside that. So it calls for testing and then re-evaluating what has been brought for you to incorporate into your manuscript. Now, you may not be a publisher, no, but you can print what you have written, give it to a child in your church, your community, and then you can work with them to finish your manuscript. Now, this point number 12 is something that has always been very important to me, because I've realized that people do not seem to seek publishing. So they write their material and they publish them in their drawers, they publish them in their notebooks, they publish them elsewhere, but not to seek publishing. I think that as ambassadors and people whom the Lord has called to write for young people, if we will spend so much time writing, then we should also spend the equal time seeking for publication. People have there are so many places to publish our works. In this country, we have a junior graphic, that is the junior part of a weekly newspaper. I know in Nairobi, Nation has one like that. In other words, because we are ambassadors writing for this young group, we should look for them and publish the works for them. I know it takes a long time and quite a trial trying to look for a publisher to work with it. But it also helps that if we are going to do that, then it means we may have to work with publishers to see what areas of young people's works that they are seeking, and then we can plug into it. Currently, in my office, for instance, we are looking for novels, Christian novels, reaching teenagers. And now anybody who brings a novel like that, that is well written, we are most likely to accept it, because that is our need now. So it helps to be in touch with publishers to know what it is they are publishing. All right. Just going through, I am certain that a lot of all these ideas you already know. All that is needed now is to implement what we already know or what we have learned, and then we can move on. Now, we have looked at the fact that if we are going to write for young readers, we consider ourselves being called to do so. We also reminded ourselves of the need to make time to write for them. Don't say it is so easy. It isn't easy. It requires time. Don't ask yourself, why am I taking so much time writing for a young person like that? I thought, no, because it is time consuming. We've also reminded ourselves that because we have gone through young people, we've been young people before, and we know of other young people, we can use our own storehouse of experiences and recall our youthful days and then use our own personal experiences. Now, we talked about the need, therefore, that we need to know contemporary young readers. Now, contemporary means modern, the current modern young reader. What are they reading? What are they going through? And that will lead us to use the appropriate language. Appropriate language. Don't forget that you're writing for younger people who have a limited vocabulary, and so we know how to use our language that is appropriate for them. Be committed to the theme, the topics, and the issues. Be passionate about them, we said, and then because of the passion, you are likely to follow your passion and then write also for young people. I told you how to evaluate for keys for evaluating manuscripts for young people. You can use that to apply to on your own writing to see whether if you were a publisher, would you have accepted your own manuscript for publishing? Because they're important, it's relevant, it's interesting, and it's also timely. We talked about pacing, which is critical strategy. Young people want it fast. They want it a lot faster so that they, because they're adventurous. Use the power of imagination and learn from the pros, the experts. Then just now we talked about the need to test read your work, let other people read, especially the younger people you are trying to read your work. And then after you have done that, seek to publish your work. Let us be as aggressive about writing as we are as aggressive about publish our work. So that's it. In conclusion, I didn't intend to get into this, but I thought I would like to remind all of us who are writing fiction that do not forget that your fiction has characters. I'm looking at the special checklist for fiction. Characters, plot, the topics or the issues you're writing about, number 3. Number 4, the goals and the obstacles that hinder characters from achieving their goals. Okay? So you're talking about your characters, your plot, your issues, and the goal. Then don't forget that your story must be put in a setting. And description, that is the local setting of your characters. Some people write fiction and they forget dialogue. Conversation. This is just a checklist for fiction. Conversation. So conversation always brightens the fiction. Then also for point number 8, write your scene. Okay, write scene by scene, and then be sure to drop in suspense and let your narration be strong. One of the sense of fiction writers that we have realized, and I have found that in my own writings a lot of times when I go back and look at them, is a mixture of point of views. All right, you are writing a scene. Through whose eyes are you writing that scene? And your point of view must be well done. Sometimes they say that point of view determines who are the good writers and those of us who are still learning. Then finally, you do have your climax and your resolution. These are all just essential mechanics that you want to know as you write your fiction. Again, I know many of you may know these things. You have written about them, you have used them, and it is just a reminder for us. Thank you. I hope you heard me, and that you probably have one or two questions or maybe comments or something that we can share together.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. That was really excellent. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing your experience and your knowledge on writing for young people. We have several questions here. One from RD. He's asking you for examples of themes or topics that you have written about for young people. Can you give us some examples?
yes, this particular age group that we are looking at, they are in schools. So, and you know how many times they spend quite a lot of time in the school. So if you are talking about scene by scene, they are in school. A scene can just be even a trip to a school. If you are taking a bus, were there other incidents in the bus? Have they met some strangers? Do they have issues with their examination? Recently, we did a magazine story in which we are just coaching young readers on how to face their examination. Now, that's a scene. Or maybe they are on holidays and then they travel to visit people. Just that every scene ought to bring out some form of conflict. All right, the characters want to achieve something, and then there is an obstacle, and in trying to overcome that obstacle, the story moves on. Those of you in whose country you have had warfare, I was in Uganda. I went for a training with MAI, and we came across seeing situations in which young people within that age group were just emerging out of war. And the workshop we did that just sent some people on an errand, a kind of a mission to go and talk to some of these young people and to get their stories. So find out what is in your own country, what are the issues that you can document by way of writing for young people. Yeah.
Lawrence, what is the website of your publishing house so people can see examples of your work and book covers?
All
Step
right.
Publishers.
Yes. Stepbooks.org. Stepbooks, be sure to add the S.
Dot
Stepbooks.org.
.org, O-R-G. So
Yes. ORG.
stepbooks.org.
Yes.
You
And
can
then
take a look.
my own website is lawrencedarmani.com.
Yes. Arnie, that's yes.
Lawrencedarmani.com has all my titles.
Yeah. So yeah,
Stepbooks.org. Yeah, all
so
right.
LawrenceDarmani.com.
Yes. lawrencedarmani.com. All
Okay.
one word. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can we have, you might have other questions. Is Grief Child designed specifically for young readers?
Um, yes and no. The focus on the main character is a young boy of 12, 13-year-old boy, 14, and a sister. So from his eyes, I told a story, and so young people read it and find the story, the difficulties that this young boy and the family went through. But then I also wanted the adult readers to see the kind of struggles that young people go through and help hopefully change their perspective and views on looking at young people who have issues to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Has it when I was reading it, Lawrence, I thought
Yeah.
this would make a good movie. or maybe a movie for television or something.
Yes, I
Yeah,
got.
so it's
I received. You see, when the book became an examination book for senior high schools, I received a lot of invitation to let the book become a film. Now, I declined because I realized that every time filmmakers take a book to make a film out of that book, they embellish the stories with all kinds of scenes and additions, add-ons, and subtractions. And as long as the students were writing an examination on it, I did not want a situation in which, for example, it says in the story, a boy was running home, and then the film director thinks that he should rather be riding a bicycle. Now, and then put a bicycle there. And that confuses the student. All right. But now that it's no longer an examination textbook, I am open to receiving any such invitation. So, yeah, it's possible.
okay.
Yeah.
Is it available at Amazon as an ebook?
Yes, yes, it's available on Amazon ebook.
Yeah,
Looks like somebody even looked for it. I can see. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Other other questions from the floor? Um, I see that our participants are interacting with one another. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions from our participants? What about finding a good editor,
Yes.
Lawrence?
Um, yes. And in fact, that's one area that is particularly that I am now very passionate about because I've realized that a lot of a lot of authors. Now, when you take some of these bestsellers and you read a little preface, you find out that all of them are appreciating and acknowledging the work of the editor in bringing the book to where it was. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
the editorial process is so critical. Editors bring such a huge impact on the work that we write. So
Yes.
the editors are usually in two categories. Some of them are freelance. In fact, these days you can find editors online. But publishers
Mm-hmm.
in our own localities, in our own countries, these publishers have in-house editors and freelance editors. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that writers can contact publishing houses and then to give them the contacts of their freelance and in-house editors who can work along with them and then help them to
Yes.
develop and then edit their work. Every Bob Ricky, one time, Bob Ricky, I was just sharing some thoughts with Bob Ricky about some work that I had produced. And the first question he asked me was, Lawrence, who is your editor? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and the thought was very strong. Every writer needs an editor, and you'll
Every
find them.
writer needs an editor.
Yes,
We can repeat that.
yeah,
Every
we can
writer
repeat
needs
that.
an editor.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can quote me on that
Jenny,
because
Jenny, yeah. Jenny Ho has a question. How do we overcome the fear that they are more digital than us?
yes, it's a digital age, and yes, indeed, there is they are more digital than we are. In fact, to get this webinar going, my daughter has been around to assist in the past when we're trying to set things up. And then before I knew, she had gone here and gone there and done a whole lot of things. That was earlier on yesterday and the day before. So yes, they are more because they have the time. Now the fear is just a false expectation that seems to be real. It's not something we should be about. Rather than fearing it, we should rather cooperate with them.
Mm-hmm.
So we should learn from what they have, and then not be apprehensive of them. In fact, like I gave an example earlier on, we need the spirit of humility. Even sometimes you buy a phone or you want to connect something on your phone, you don't even know how to go around it. You call your son, your daughter, or some young person across, then he comes and sorts you out so easily. So yes, it's a digital age. They indeed have something that looks like an artificial intelligence, whatever they get it from, but we can incorporate what they know with what we know and then use our own maturity to produce something for them that they will like.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mhm. Very good answer.
Mm.
Okay. Any more questions? Uh, Thank you so much for your interaction. Um, yeah, people are appreciating you, Lawrence.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
the time. I
yeah.
hope they are all going
So,
to Singapore.
well, that's we can segue to inviting people to Singapore then. Uh, yeah, so yes, thank you, Ivanova. Thank you
Thank you.
having a
Thank you.
missionary mindset. Yes.
Well, somebody said yes, come to Singapore, and
That's
thank
Jenny
you. Yeah,
welcoming
that's
us.
Jenny.
Yes. Uh, Before we go to Singapore,
Yeah. Yes.
you might be. Thank you again, Lawrence. It's really
Yeah. Thank you, Ramon. Thank you, Ramon.
you're very helpful, and thank you for the tips that you have shared with us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Today's webinar. Now we have to apply what we've learned in writing for young people.
Yeah.
And the next free MAI webinar is next month, July 10, how to create and distribute audiobooks with Dan Bailo.
Don't be.
Um, yeah, audiobooks here in North America is becoming popular. But I
Really?
wonder, yeah, I wonder in many other cultures around the world, many are oral cultures. So I
Yeah.
wonder
You
if there
know,
is
even in Ghana
audiobook.
here, we have churches. Now we started a small church in Central Accra, and we realized many of them could not read. So we have an
Mm-hmm,
organization here called Pure Vision. I went there and bought some audio Bibles and gave to
mm-hmm.
some who could not read. So this idea of audio books is something which we really need.
Yes. So if you're interested in learning more about how to create and distribute audiobooks, please sign up for our next month's webinar. Use our website, and we are going to send out invitations to all of our uh, friends in our mailing list. You will expect to receive an invitation from us to register for next month's webinar. It's already there. You can go to our website and you can sign up right after this webinar for next month's webinar. So we would like to have you there uh, for next month. We've been talking about Singapore. 2018 is a Lit World Year. The theme of this year's Lit World is the word made fresh. We
Mhm.
need fresh and ways, compelling ways to write and publish materials faithful to the Word of God. And for those of you who have been to a Lit World, um, you know that you've experienced a Lit World in the past, and I'm sure you're able to share that to others who have not been to a Lit World. So June 22nd is the last day for early bird registration. So I encourage you, those of you who have not yet registered, to please go online, go to litworld.org and register for Lit World. We are expecting, God willing, at least 250 writers, editors, publishers, graphic designers from around the world to congregate in Singapore, October 28th to November 2. So, yeah. Okay. Yes, RD will be one of the presenters in Singapore. So we're looking forward to that. RD and others who are here in this webinar, several of you have already registered, and thank you. And we are hoping to see more people to come and join Lit World this year in Singapore. Okay, so our time is up. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Again, thank you, Lawrence.
Yes, thank you.
Very much for
thank you, Ramon. My greetings to everybody. Bonnie, Don.
Yes, I'll extend
Yeah.
your greetings to our team here,
Yes.
John, Don, and Bonnie. And
Yes.
thank you everyone for joining us today. And we hope to see you again
All right.
next month. And yes, Jose Carlos, see you in Singapore, Lord willing.
Yes.
Thank you, Jose Carlos from Mexico. Okay, so goodbye for now. The Lord bless you and encourage you.
The Lord bless you all.
Your writing and publishing,
Yes.
it is making an impact in the lives of your readers. So God bless you. Goodbye
God
for
bless
now.
you. Goodbye for now.
Yes, thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you.